What happened?
Sarah is just
Oh,
getting us going live. All set? Okay. Yes, thank you. Okay, so if Joan can take notes, I'll call the meeting of the Recreation Advisory Committee to order. It's November 19th, 2020. We'll do a roll call for those in attendance.
Here comes Ann. She could take notes.
Okay. Hi, Anne. So I'll say first name, and then if you can just say your full name in here. I'll go in order of my squares. Joan,
Joan Francolini here.
Brandon,
Brandon Bader here.
Morgan,
Morgan Stewart here.
Kyle,
Kyle would be here.
Carol,
Carol Coonahan here.
great. Anne,
Ann Sigsby here.
Evan,
Evan Lagasse here.
Meth,
Meth Runyon here.
Alan.
I'm here.
Okay, and then we're being joined tonight by Robert Cunningham and Steve O'Grady from OSC and OCT, so thank you very much. First order of business is to approve the minutes for the 10-15-20 meeting. Did everyone should have received those minutes a few weeks ago. So if there's an issue we can discuss, or I'll take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Motion.
Second by Anne. And all in favor, Joan?
Hi, Joan.
Tracy Murphy, aye. Kyle?
Aye.
Evan?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
And Brandon?
Aye.
Great. Okay, then moving right along to our special guest from Orleans Conservation and OSC. You should have all received the application about the Greenbelt Gateway, the 66 Port Nimicut Lot 2 preservation project. So I'll give the floor to our guest if you want to walk us through the main elements or ideas, and then we can open it up to questions.
okay. Well, Steve and I reconnoitered this afternoon just to determine who would speak first, and certainly either one of us deserves to speak first, but I drew the longest straw. So welcome. We're really pleased. I'm really pleased. I know Steve is to be before the committee. I've never spoken to the Recreation Advisory Committee, and it makes so much sense that the Open Space Committee that I chair and Orleans Conservation Trust that Steve is director for should be meeting with the Recreation Advisory Committee, because I have never been a fan of environmental preservation per se, for the sake of just what it is. I always have felt that people should have the ability to breathe, walk, and run, and otherwise experience our open spaces. So the three committees can certainly do things that are far before the sum of our parts. And so I'm hoping that over time we'll have more activities through the Recreation Advisory Committee that educate more folks in Orleans about the open spaces we have and what they can do in them, and also educate us as to how we're not sufficiently using our open space yet. So I'm just going to speak for a few minutes because I know you have a long agenda. You've already read our proposal. So I'm going to speak for a few minutes, then Stephen will fill in the details that I've missed, and hopefully we'll still have a little time for for questions, which is where we all really learn. So I'm the submitting committee for the Gateway because it's a project that I've been interested in since I first heard Stephen speak about it a year and a half ago. And at the time, it was the first action I took as chair of the Open Space Committee to draft a very strong endorsement of the pursuit by OCT of Port Innificate Way. Since then, they've come a long way. And as you've seen in the proposal, they've raised somewhere north of $550,000 and are getting really close. And they need naturally they need a partner, a public partner in this project. They've already done a great job with nonprofit volunteers and philanthropists, and so a lot has been invested in 1 and 3. And now we need to take the project home with 2. It also makes sense for the Open Space Committee because Lot 2 is the gateway. It abuts the Christian property. And more importantly, it's a real gateway. I don't know how many of you have experienced the Christian property and been out on the trails there, but it's hiding almost in plain sight, but it's not very plain from Port Innificate Road. You get into the conservation area on a really half-hidden trail almost. And so you have to watch out that you don't scratch your car on the rusty boat trail next to it. So it is a real gateway because the end of Lot 2 really is if you think of a pork chop, this is the bone end that connects right to 66 Port Innificate, and is going to provide a great gateway entrance to the Christian area, the Christian property. So as our proposal is mentioned, the current parking lot and trailhead will be moved over to 66 Port Innificate. And it's going to be a gateway even well beyond the Christian property. So the Christian property is just the beginning. And the reality is that over the next decade, we will have a complete trail all the way to Pawa Pond by reason of the Heilman bequest. So it's going to be it is a wonderful space now. It'll be better with the Gateway property, Lot 2 purchase, and it will be fabulous when the Heilman property becomes part of the whole parcel. And with that, we would have about 100 acres of really nice walking trails and natural habitat. So it stitches together the 3 properties, but also stitches together a really long series of conservation areas on both sides of the Port Innificate Road and going north to Namaquoit Road. So I'd like to turn it over after one question, and that is, how many people have a copy of the Orleans Walking Trails brochure? Has everyone seen it? Okay. Well, it's a fabulous map put together at the behest of the Orleans Conservation Trust and the town, probably and it was done with Community Preservation Act money. And it is absolutely wonderful because it lists all the trails for both OCT and the town, describes where they are, even though some of them are hard to find. So yes, Morgan.
How do we get one? I would love one. How do I find a brochure like that?
I'm gonna let Steve talk. And this is a good segue to Stephen.
Okay.
So Stephen, why don't you take it from here? I have one ask, and that is, if you find this project appealing to the Recreation Advisory Committee, it would be very important to the to our application if you were able to write even a very short endorsement letter of the proposal, which we would attach as we submit it to the Community Preservation Committee. Stephen, pick up on the
Thank
important details that I've somehow missed.
Well, no, you did a great job, Robert, and I think covered most of it. Morgan, to answer your question, we do have those trail maps, trail guides available at the Orleans Conservation Trust office, which is on Route 28 between Monument Road and Pond Road. There were a number of other locations where we had been going through them quickly in pre-COVID times, but unfortunately, some of the areas where we had been able to keep them in stock are now kind of off limits. But rest assured, as soon as we are able to, we'll continue to put those in different places around town, including Town Hall. That was one of the spots we would go through them fastest. But it is a nice guide, and it's gonna need an update in the not too distant future as we're continuing to add to the trail network in Orleans, which is great. And I want to echo what Robert said at the beginning there, that it's really great to be involved with this group. I've been dealing with a few of you individually on a number of items that are further down the agenda, your agenda tonight, that is. And I think there's definitely continued opportunity for a partnership, as Robert said. And I think it will behoove us all to continue to partner together and work together, because there is so much opportunity out there, and this has been kind of a missing piece, I'll say. So really good to see such an active committee. I don't know if I have I don't have the ability to share my screen, but you have seen the maps that are included at kind of the end of that narrative. And so the first one is a close-up of these 3 parcels, 2 of which were acquired by the Orleans Conservation Trust recently. And then we've kind of set it up for this town acquisition to provide access to the Christian property. And I can tell you from OCT having collected data on our trail usership this summer during COVID, of course, we had incredibly high use on our trails. So that was really great to see. We know there are truly thousands of people who are out enjoying our trails. And this is another one that is a really nice trail, but it's A, shorter. So this acquisition is going to make the trail longer. But B, and more importantly, even as Robert pointed out, there's really not good access to the property now. It's hidden away. You have to cross over a private driveway that the town does have an easement over. But this is going to be far preferable access. And then also importantly, there's land to the south of Port-a-Namicut Road in what's called the Quonset Wellfield that doesn't have any designated parking. And there are a number of informal trails in there. OCT would love to formalize those over time and work with the Board of Water Commissioners on that. And maybe that's something, again, that the Rec Advisory Committee might be involved in as well. That would be great. And then to the east of Lot 2 here, the property we're talking about is the Christian property, yes, but further beyond that is 20 acres of land that Robert mentioned that continues down to Pawa Pond. And then if you were to cross over Port-a-Namicut Road all the way down to Little Pleasant Bay. So this is going to be one of our premier conservation areas. All that land that's outlined in yellow is going to come to OCT when the landowner of all that land passes away. She has said that for years now, and obviously we're tremendously grateful to have that. That's a whole lot of value in that land, but it's also an incredible opportunity to provide waterfront access to anyone who would like to use it. So with all that said, I think we better open it up for questions and not take too much of your time. Oh, Meph, you're muted.
You're still muted, Meph.
Muted. Whoops.
Stephen, were other people able to see a screen share that I didn't see?
No, I wasn't
okay.
able, but
You can screen share now.
I think attachment 2 in the application was the one that I found really helpful, and just so you should all have something like that somewhere in the packet. I think even if you haven't had a chance to see it, even if you take little time after the meeting. It's really exciting to look at all those, parcels of land lining up and forming this expanse that that can be used and preserved. So it's worth. Oh, great.
Yeah, so this is attachment one, kind of a close up. Here's lot two that we're talking about. The black is the trail on the Christian property. And then there's potential to expand the trail north, expand the trail east. That's almost definitely going to happen. And then also access opportunities to the south. And then here's the attachment that Tracy was just talking about that shows kind of this whole green belt that is coming together and kind of highlighted by lot two right there in the middle. That's going to provide this starting point, the gateway to the green belt.
Joan?
So I would love for us to write a letter of support. I actually was trying to get Stephen to align with us putting another recreation application in so we can also start with money to do trails. We put one in for a bike rack, but we're holding off on that because it is such a perfect opportunity to really have a fully integrated walkway with parking and access and everything. But next year we can come back with the trails. So I vote we write a letter of recommendation.
Terrific.
Kyle?
So I've been on the Christian property. There's a good amount of parking back there, correct?
I think there are 8 spots.
And this purchase for 250 would be to basically build another parking lot?
Well, so it would replace the parking lot that does exist. But I think more importantly, you have the designated road frontage for the town-owned property. So right now, if you're not kind of an insider, you don't know about how to get to the Christian property. It's advertised on OCT's website, but I think because of the lack of rights that the town has, there can't be any signage put up by the road.
As I've said to several people, the only way you can get into the Christian property is having been at the Christian property before. It's just, it is, one passes it by with nary a glance at where the Christian property actually is. So the gateway, I call our proposal the Greenbelt Gateway because it is literally a very important gateway for open land and will eventually be a gateway to a very long and wonderful conservation space.
Anne?
I want to emphasize what Joan said. I think this is exactly the kinds of things we would want to collaborate with and endorse. I do have a question. I'm a little confused about who, is it OCT and the town together? Who maintains or cares for the property once it's purchased?
I'll take the first piece of that, Anne, and that is that the Open Space Committee will be, is proposing to purchase the land for the town. But the town will then grant the Orleans Conservation Trust the conservation, the CR, for the lot 2, for the gateway. So that they will be the, as I understand it, the chief stewards of the project.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we can kind of figure out with the conservation department, with John Janelle. I'm always in touch with him, and I think it depends on really what he wants to do. I think OCT would be happy to take on some management obligation here, knowing that we are going to be getting that 20 acres and there's going to be trails there eventually. So the conservation restriction is kind of just it's what's required when CPA funds are spent on an open space purchase. So that's why OCT would be holding this conservation restriction. It's a little bit independent of who would steward the land, but OCT would, I think, be happy to.
Good.
Anne?
If there are no more questions or comments, I would like to make a motion that the committee endorses this application.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Joan? Any discussion? Kyle?
I love all the trails in Orleans. I use them. I live right behind John Kenrick. I'm in Pawa all the time. I run through Twinnings Pond and all that sort of stuff. So I love everything that's going on with the trails. My concern from the Rec Advisory Committee is, one, we have a number of applications going into CPC, and this is a huge chunk of CPA money available to the town. Are we kind of shooting ourselves in the foot in a sense by limiting the amount of funds that could be available for us? Two, I just also have a concern about spending. I get CPA money, I understand that, but it's a purchase to build a parking lot, to replace a parking lot that's already there. I do understand the access or the finding kind of situation, but I've been up on the Christian property. I found the parking lot. It didn't seem that difficult to me. I just think it is a lot of money for a parking lot. That's just where I'm standing. I would probably be voting no from the rec perspective. So thanks.
I would just say, and then I'll open it to more discussion. I think what I'm struck by is the issue of access. I think that's one of the links that I'm finding between this committee and OSC and OCT, is that one of the things that we've come up against, or that we keep finding, is that, you know, there's great opportunities for recreation, but if access is an issue, it's not as meaningful. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't get us as far. So I think that this proposal ties in really nicely, even within, you know, whether it's the kayak racks or even, you know, having a more centrally located basketball court, of just making it easier for people to take advantage of all the opportunities that the town has. So, so I'll be voting in favor. Meth? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. A couple of things. I'm on the CPC, and I'm on the board at the Orleans Conservation Trust. And so I've kind of watched this whole project, which has been going on for 2 years anyways. And there's a bigger sort of story here, which was that the fundraising project started to acquire 3 lots. And it was being sold as a bundle by an estate. So the total cost of those 3 lots, and Stephen, you can correct me, I think was north of $800,000. And so it was being structured this way for the town to help out in a private-public partnership, for which the town is a very, you know, is a minority kind of contributor to this. There's a lot more private money raised than there is an ask for the town, and so it isn't really the full story. Isn't just for this lot, which was something that since it was the piece that connected into the Christian property best, or maybe only, that was the one that seemed most logical for the town to you know, for the town to jump into the transaction with its share. It's not a standalone purchase. In other words, I guess the point is it's not a standalone purchase of lot 2. There were 3 lots that have been set aside, which will be open space, but the town is going to get, you know, really open space in 3 lots, the use of 3 lots for the price of you know, probably less than 1. And on the CPC, I've been trying to keep track of money that I know is going to be coming in for applications. And I was telling Tracy earlier that if I add up the recreation asks that I'm aware of, it's roughly about $135,000 this year. There's going to be, there is a big ask from the affordable housing people for $500,000, and the open space ask of $250,000. And there's going to be also a big, a $2 million ask for affordable housing, but it'll be bonded. So real net cost to the budget for CPC will be probably under 125,000. So if you add up all of those, you're still well short of $1 million, and there's going to be 1.2 or 1.3 million dollars available to be given out as grants. So I don't think the rec asks are going to get bumped. I mean, I just don't see it. The only thing that I am not aware of is what historic preservation asks are out there to come in. I think there's going to be a couple, but I don't think that the recreation asks in this year are going to be cut for financial reasons. If there's other things that come up that are problematic for the ask, then that might change things. But I think there's going to be enough money for all the recreation asks.
Beth, if I can just jump in to correct for the record, it was the purchase price for the 3 lots was $775,000. OCT did spend an additional $25,000 on demolition of the house, so it was a total of $800,000.
Now, I think
Robert and then Joan, if that's.
if I could add one item to what Beth just said, and that is, yes, the official ask from the Open Space Committee will be $250,000. However, that $250,000 will come from what is in effect old money from the past fiscal year that the Orleans Conservation Trust decided not to spend. They withdrew their application last year, and as a consequence, money was not spent. $125,000 was put in an open space reserve. So I view it as picking up the $125,000 that was not spent in last year's budget, CPC budget, and adding to that $125,000 of new open space money this year. And that $125,000 is the only money that the Open Space Committee will be asking for, except for $10,000 as pre-acquisition money. So in effect, we will be coming in more or less spot on to the 10% that open space normally, well, the minimum that has to be used by CPA for the CPC. So 125 last year, 125 this year, and that makes the proposal.
Joan, and then
I just also want to say, I mean, we've been working with OCT on our other asks, and it's been an amazing partnership. Without them, we would not have as rich of an offering that we're asking for this year, between the bike racks, picnic tables, storybook trail. So I just find OCT to be a phenomenal partner with us to make this a more recreation-friendly town. And the more we can do, the better is integrating all together. So I just want to put that in there, that it's, our applications are strong because of the OCT and the partnership.
Carol?
Yeah, I had the same concern that Kyle did, so I'm really glad you put it in words. And it sounds, between Mev and Robert's explanations, I believe we wouldn't be putting ourselves at risk, and I hope I'm understanding correctly, and it's not just an accounting thing. It's actually really only a request for $125,000 out of this year's pot, and that would make me not have the serious concern I did when Kyle first brought it up. I'm not in favor of all open space. I'm a hiker and an outdoor girl and a user of all the trails, unless it's a property like this. And when it adds to existing space, when it makes for a bigger space, when it ends up with waterfront, then I'm vastly in favor of that property. So I'm in favor of this one.
Any more discussion, or you can go ahead to a vote? Okay. So motion is on the table to for the Recreation Advisory Committee to endorse the Greenbelt Gateway 66 Port Nantucket Lot 2 preservation proposal. Joan,
Joan, I.
Tracy Murphy, aye. Kyle,
Aye.
Anne,
And I.
Evan,
Evan, I.
and Brandon.
Brandon, I.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We appreciate your visiting the meeting tonight, and hopefully it's not the last time you join us, and we look forward to working together going forward.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
Given
thank you so
the
much.
short window of time we have, I can get a letter out to you tomorrow.
It's awesome.
Okay,
Wonderful.
Thank you.
all right, great. Thank you
very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Would it be implied if we left the meeting?
No, as you noted, we have a long way to go, so it would not be, it would be in your best interest, I think. Get out while you can.
Thank you so much for the time, and
Thank you.
I want to come back to the committee later on this year to talk about signage, access, information. So that'll be
Terrific.
later on a different project.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. The next item is the Recreation Director's report. Alan?
Not a lot to report. Fall is ending pretty much now. Cross country for the middle school kids ended today. Soccer for the middle school kids ends next Wednesday. Soccer for elementary school and preschool will end this Saturday. We had 92 boys and girls in the Saturday soccer program. So that was really popular. Winter guidance for winter athletics, basketball in particular, will come out tomorrow through the state, the EEA, which is the Office of Environmental Energy. So we'll know exactly what basketball would look like if we were to have basketball based on the guidance, and some other winter sports as well, but we'll know that tomorrow. When that's out and we have a chance to look at it, I will begin to look at some winter activities. We are definitely going to do some continuation of adult fitness in the winter. We're going to definitely continue to do some YouTubing with fitness online, depending upon access to facilities. We'll work with our schools, if doable, for some indoor programming, depending on availability of space. I did take a certification in COVID-19 for recreation administrators, so I'm nationally certified. So I should know what I'm talking about when I talk about COVID-19. So there's a lot of information that's involved in that. So it's pretty, in terms of indoor, outdoor, youth, adults, games, not games, in order to develop programming. So I just finished that a couple of days ago. That's about it.
There are two things that we're going to talk about with Alan while we have him that are noted on the agenda. Before we get there, are there any other questions about fall or winter programming, Meth?
This is just an observation. It would be a good thing, I think, to put down in writing the numbers of participants, both kids and adults, through each one of these seasons. I think I was interested. I mean, the figure of 92 people, 92 kids doing soccer really sort of jumped out at me. But I think the question is always how how well is the recreation program reaching out into the community in all demographics. And um, if we started keeping track of those numbers, it would be useful over time to see if if we're gaining ground or losing ground or just holding our own.
Meth, I can actually I can give you those because they're in my head just so that you have them. In youth soccer, 92, middle school soccer. I think I mentioned to you last month to the group that we picked up all the middle school programming that they didn't run. Middle school soccer, there's 20 kids that participated in that. We ran a middle school cross country program. We had 17 kids in that. We had instructional tennis for middle school, which had 7 kids. We had tennis instruction for 4th and 5th graders, which we had, I believe, close to the same. And 2nd and 3rd grade was close to the same. I think 8 to 10 kids in that program. Adult fitness, right now we have 28 participants in one program, and we have one that just ended. We had 5. So those are the numbers at this particular time.
Anne?
Thank you. That actually leads to what I wanted to say. Number one, Alan, could you actually send me those numbers? I couldn't keep track, but I for the minutes.
Sure.
And I would like to make a motion that the Recreation Department enter into the minutes at every season the participation numbers for the programs, because I think Mef's comment is excellent that we need some perspective and communicate to the town and board and so forth on what's happening. So there's a motion and then I chattered afterwards, sorry.
Anne has put a motion that Recreation Advisory have the numbers from participants in rec programming each season so that we can, track changes in progress. Do I have a second?
I would like to add something to it. If we have the numbers, I would love to know a year over year. So has it gone up or if it's gone down? Not just the straight numbers. So something we can actually measure.
Okay.
And show progress and how much Alan's doing and increasing participation would just help.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Okay, we'll go to a vote. Joan?
Joan, aye.
Anne?
And I.
Kyle?
Aye.
Evan?
Evan, aye.
Brandon?
Aye.
Tracy Murphy, aye. Okay. Motion passes. Great. And before we move on, I would, I don't think I saw anyone else at the soccer field on Saturdays through the soccer programming, but it was such a huge hit. I'm not taken aback by the 92 number because there were so many people there, but there was enough room for people to spread out. And in fact, there was one weekend where Sharon's son came over to play basketball with my oldest son. They're too old for the Saturday soccer program. And Sharon looked around and she said, "Oh, I missed this." So it was that sort of, seeing people in community and the kids playing. And it's been such a nice part of an otherwise kind of strange fall. So kudos to you, Alan, for pulling that off. It was great.
Well, thank you. Just so people know, and this is COVID related totally for the most part, we staggered start everything. for instance, for Saturday morning, there's 92 kids. If we had 92 kids on the field at one time, we would be in violation of COVID-19, and you know that I'd be in trouble. So what we do is we have a pre-K, K, kindergarten, first and second grade meet on the Orleans Elementary School small field from 9:30 to 10:30. We have three sections for them to go in. There's 44 people in that, 44 children in that program. We split them up into 3 different groups. At 10 o'clock, we have the 3rd and 4th grade show up, and they go to the other field, which is called volunteer. And that gives, as they're on that field, that gives the young group that goes from 9:30 to 10:30 an opportunity to leave and walk off the field without intermingling with anybody. And then the older kids come in at 11 and play their hour from 11 to 12. And so the numbers are like 44 little kids, 28 3rd and 4th grade, 20 5th and 6th grade. So it's staggered start so that nobody intermingles with other people. And we end this Saturday with a little ceremony for each group. Every kid is gonna get something. I'm not gonna tell you what, because some people might tell, but everyone gets something.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so then moving on, at the last meeting, we discussed briefly safety protocols for Orleans rec programs. I had a chance to reach out to Alan in between that meeting and this meeting. So, and maybe Anne can fill us in a little more, but what we discussed last time was teacher to child ratios in terms of not having one teacher and one student. You know, Joan brought up whether we could have one teacher and 2 students, but wondering what the policy is at Orleans Rec and wanting to clarify that. Anne, did you want to fill us in?
I did. I think after I brought up what I was hearing from the Early Education Council and the state, I did a little more research. And I think really what I'm asking for in this era, when we're unfortunately aware that wherever children gather, there are potential problems. And we're hearing that on the internet. We're certainly hearing that with Boy Scouts and school, it's there. And what I think any program, and Orleans recreation programming should be part of this concept. Any program should have a code of conduct and policies that emphasize safety. And that it be written down and agreed upon and part of hiring, part of programming, so that it is addressed explicitly, not implicitly. In addition, I have encountered a superb tool, and it's a tool for organizations to use to develop their policies, so that it's almost like a workbook like setup, and it's through the safekidsthrive.org website, and it just helps establish a code of conduct. So for instance, we did talk about an adult not being alone with children and how that would be spelled out. and talked about how that is not only a protection for the children, but protection for adults. And then going through, and there's various triggers, is giving kids piggybacks okay or not okay? Drinking alcohol before the game, not okay. It should be explicit so that, and I'm not ordinarily one to bureaucratize behavior, but in this world where child abuse and complaints of child abuse can damage the lives of both coaches and children, I think it's important for Orleans Recreation to have a written policy.
Alan, can you fill us in on what policy may already be in existence, or how you see this fitting into the rec department?
The things that were mentioned there about like alcohol before a game, or things like being back rubs for kids or piggyback rides, stuff like that. That's all in our summer, because that's the only time that there's any other staff is during the summer. And we have policies written out. We have a staff handbook that outlines, a lot of that stuff. For example, we don't apply sunscreen to a child. We don't do the things that were mentioned. There's also a thing called Safe Sport, which is on the website, which is if you go to U.S. Center for Safe Sports U.S. Center for Safe Sport.org, and you can see some things like Safe Sports for preschoolers, Safe Sport for K through 2, Safe Sport for grades 3 through 6, Safe Sport for high school athletes, Parents Guide to Misconduct in Sports, and that is on our website. All of that information is on our website.
Alan, what about the ratios when it comes to adults being alone with kids? Are you in a position, or is the department in a position to have 2 adults running programs?
Not with one staff person. I would find that hard to have 2 people available for all activities when there's only one person on staff. I know we look at volunteers for certain programs, but I've talked about this with people in the town of Orleans for years, that wouldn't it be nice if we had more staff like other towns? So I think that's going to be difficult to just throw in right now and say we need 2 people for every program. And I'll give you an example. Tuesday, I had a cross-country program for my middle schoolers. And I generally have people who have been available to help me. And they would do things like Corey checks and stuff that is standard procedure. But if we said, just an example, if we said, well, you can't be alone with 10 kids, and the person who was going to help me couldn't show up, do I cancel? I mean, I think it comes down to, common sense too. I mean, the town of Orleans has taken at least me as an employee and said that through their research and conduct, excuse me, through their research, they have determined that I am obviously safe with children. That children are safe in my presence. And then when I do hire a summer staff person or bring in a volunteer to assist in programming, that then falls on me to do the follow-up research that I have to do. And I am certified through the town of Orleans. I am certified to do CORI and SORI checks myself. I have an account with the state to do that myself. So then I would determine that an individual would be a safe person to have representing the rec department with children. Now, that doesn't mean that there can't be some revised, written up rules and regulations, but we'd really be tying the hands of the people who run the programs even more than we do now if we indicate that we need an X amount of people who would need to be present for an activity. That simply becomes a common sense situation. When I do a youth basketball program or a youth soccer program and I divvy up kids to coaches, I certainly don't give somebody, 38 children to supervise. That becomes just common sense. You have to either break the groups up, get more coaches involved, but certainly a relook at some of the guidance is probably a good thing.
I have a quick comment and then I see Carol's hand. I'd be interested once the talking stick gets back to you, Alan, in hearing too. In my limited experience with my kids in rec programs, it seems to me that there are often parents hanging around, parents who sit and talk with other parents in their car, the next car over at tennis, and then the hour goes by. Same thing in winter basketball, that my social life has been largely on the sidelines of Orleans recreation programs for the last 10 years. I wonder if there's an opportunity to formalize that with the parents of kids on the team to sort of, if they're often assistant coaches, but if the assistant coach isn't available, I know it's extra work, but does the coach have cell phone numbers that he can call or she can call to ask this parent to stick around today during practice?
I'm a little hesitant on that, just based on the general way that's being said. And I would give you an example of this based on some discussions that have been had in the past. And that was going back to I guess there's no way to really say it except say it. If people really are following recreation in this town, they'll see that Alan Harrison is at just about 99.99% of the activities that are being run. I'm certified in first aid. I'm certified in CPR. I'm certified in AED. I actually own my own AED because the town has never given me one. I'm certified in concussion testing, concussion awareness, and obviously now COVID-19, to be aware of situations in an environment. And to get back to my point, we go back to some discussions that were had a year or so ago about open gym, and why don't we just give parents, why can't a parent just show up? Well, if a parent just shows up and they don't have, quote, a cell phone with them, if they're not certified in any first aid, CPR, or AED, or any type of training, and a situation happens where a child gets injured, it's going to be me that takes the burden of that. And I'm not willing to do that. I think what we need is, instead of throwing parents in and saying, hey, can you cover me? I can't make the game. We need professional staff. That's what we need. We need professional staff.
And I hear that, and I'm not suggesting that parents, that this would be
Mhm.
the ultimate. I just think that this would be an easy might not be the right word. This might be a short-term solution to the issue of needing or wanting an extra set of eyes on rec programming. But I hear your concerns and I hear the limitations of that. I just wonder if this could be a way to address it in the short term, because certainly a good sized staff isn't a short term solution. That's not something we're going to have in the short term. Carol.
I was going to make a couple comments and ask a couple questions. The kid safety programs that I've been familiar with, I too spent my social life on the edge of a soccer field for about 12 or 15 years. And then I'm familiar with a Safe Church program that was developed for exactly the same reasons Ann introduced with this one. And then the Boy Scouts, which of course have a really bad rap, but I have a son who's an Eagle Scout, and his troop strictly enforced the never one adult with one child, ever. So the ratio to me is not the 10 to 1. It's not Alan and 10 kids. It's when the last kid goes home, should the other parent, who would be the second to last parent, could either be willing to stay, so there's 2 adults with the last kid, or it could be a subset of parents who are not just parents, but they've been Corey checked, and so they've got whatever minimum amount of certification you would be comfortable with, Alan, as to be just standing in a parking lot waiting for their parent to show up and be that second adult. And the programs I'm familiar with went as far as, even other kids of a certain age could count as that second person present. So I just wanted to put out, I think it's that last minute, it's that one-on-one that is the ratio we're trying to be very careful about.
Carol, let me give you a scenario that happened last winter and how it was handled by me, because I'm the one that was there, naturally. It was a Saturday morning. We had instructional basketball at the elementary school because of the total numbers of kids, which that group of second, third, and fourth graders are large. And anyway, so we moved instructional basketball to the elementary school, and I did my program, I think 9 to 10 or 8:30 to 9:30. And generally what would happen is I open up, get the place open, and then the parents and the kids start coming. I opened it up. I was in the building. I was in the gym. A parent who's a regular came in, dropped off her daughter, who was second grade, first grade, I don't remember, and said, I'm just going to run down to the bank or something. And I said, all right, I'm going to run down and grab a cup of coffee. And I said, you absolutely cannot, you can take your daughter with you, but you will not put me, nor would you ever put a member of the rec department that I oversee in that situation. And I didn't mean, that wasn't said to her disrespectfully, but it was like, you cannot leave and expect me to watch your daughter alone. And she understood. She broke out into, oh my goodness, I understand totally. And within a minute or two, another parent and 2 showed up. But I mean, those are issues. I mean, I've been in this business a long time, and I'm not going to get caught in a predicament where that happens. And the summer people, the summer staff, they know that as well. Staff, they don't leave unless that situation cannot happen. To comment on your question or comment.
That's great. That should be in writing then, because that's wonderful.
Morgan and then Anne.
I think I might suggest starting with Alan. Alan has a great my son worked for Rec this summer, so he was given the policy packet that is already made for summer workers. That's not the right word, employees. So that's a great place to start. But maybe if Alan's open to it, and there's a few committee members, starting a policy discussion about maybe taking Anne's site that she thought was good and really formalizing some policies and putting those into place. And, maybe we do get to a point where we realize it's really not safe to run a rec program without another paid employee. Maybe we're putting ourselves at the town's putting itself at major risk. I don't know the answer, but I think it deserves more time than we can probably give it right now.
Anne?
I think that the program, the staff brochure and that sort of thing is very close to having the policy that we're looking for, save for the codification, writing down what Alan carefully tries to avoid, a situation that he will describe. I think when we talk about using parents to be the second adult, especially in the setting, when the last one or two kids leave, it doesn't mean we're asking the parent to provide first aid, evaluate concussions, be an emergency service, but to be a second adult in exactly the setting we're describing, to protect the child and the other adult. So both adults are protected. And it might, I think it would be a good idea to put together a policy. And I don't think it would be a stretch to inform parents. I think parents are pretty well tuned in, and more so of late, of the issues. And to come up with something, say, we have very successful programs with a lot of participants. We're going to expect that there be a parent that signs on for their presence. Most of us, you guys with little kids haven't seen how your lives become at the edge of fields, but parents, I think, would be very willing to sign on, and it just needs to be codified in a fashion and then played out.
Joan and then
I would like to do what Morgan recommended, because I think this can go on for a long time, and I would like to make a recommendation using Alan as our lead, because I do think Alan knows a lot and has put a lot in writing already, but a small committee that maybe can address this and then come back, because you're not going to solve it now. And I think it's worth a little subgroup to do it. So I want to support what Morgan suggested and make a motion to do so.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? Matt?
It might be useful to ask neighboring towns that have rec programs to see what they've put together on this.
Great, I agree. Okay, so we'll do a vote. Joan?
Aye.
Kyle?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
Evan?
Aye.
Brandon?
Aye.
And Tracy, aye. Do I have people who know now that they're interested in working on this? I'm happy to work on it. Anne? Morgan?
I'm happy to work on it, but I also know that limits meeting time. So it's easier for you and Anne to meet just because of my work schedule. But I'm happy to give input.
Okay, terrific. Great. All right. Moving on. Partnering with Nauset Schools is something that Kyle brought up. So can I give you the floor for a minute, Kyle, to fill us all in?
I would just, I'd be relatively quick on this, but kind of, Alan has always said a second person is going to be immensely helpful for him. And I think one way of advocating for, a second full-time position is to create a reason or a role for that person. Alan has done a great job as a one-man show, building the rec program and continue to try to improve in areas. One of the things that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's been somewhat difficult is kind of coordinating use of Nauset Regional School property. And being in Orleans, a lot of usable space is tied up with the district. So finding a kind of a niche for this second full-time position to effectively coordinate with the school to use the space there as much as we can, whether it be for after school stuff for middle schoolers or elementary or whatever, high schoolers, or Saturdays or weekend stuff. Alan's got a really full plate, but this idea was floated to me by others, but it's kind of, I've heard a lot about Tom Conrad saying that's this, the town should have full access of it. And to kind of carve out this little area in which somebody can help Alan out by taking on some of the coordination of that, as well as being able to offer even more programming, because we're adding basically 35 more hours if we're able to get the town to sign off another full-time position. But that was kind of the idea, to see if we can kind of come up with some sort of recommendation in that vein to make to the Board of Select, to kind of support that second full-time position.
Thank you. Other thoughts on this? Okay. People feeling like this is a move in the right direction?
I have a question for Meth.
Points of clarification.
I think it's a great idea, Kyle. I support it, but I wonder what the right timing would be based on the current budget situation. If this is something we would bring up at the next meeting or wait until September. Because I do think they're looking at all dollars now and still looking to cut back dollars. So it's obvious that a second person would be way beneficial, but when do we really go ask for that, Matt?
Well, if you were trying to get it in this year, now is the time. The budget process goes department by department. So Tom Daly will be asked for, the DPW budget, which includes recreation. To me, the information that'll be more that'll be asked for relates to those numbers, which is how many people are in various programs, and from those numbers you build the case for having another person. Or likewise a list of things you'd like to be doing but you can't be doing. But some sort of more numbers-based information would be useful. And you're right. This year will be a slog for getting more money. And just for future, I and maybe at least one other person on the select board is interested in earmarking in the future whatever monies come out of the cannabis industry in Orleans. And I think in my mind, the recreation program would be top of the list for designating a portion of that money. And I think that could really fertilize this program. I think that's a couple of years off.
Yeah, well, I think honestly, another full-time position is probably a couple of years off. Just based on even pre-COVID, what we went through with the budget recommendations. And so my position is squeaky wheel never gets oiled. So, I think even if we advocate for it now, they say no, advocate for it again, they say no, it just kind of builds up this, we're always there, but we're not just saying we want just this, we have some numbers to back it up or some use for it to back it up. So
Yeah.
I just want to kind of float that idea. And
I think it's good. I think because people, I think generally want this program to grow, and everybody recognizes that you can't grow it without more staff. And we look at towns nearby that have more people working on it. So I think everybody is sort of on that page of wanting to do this. But every time a town's department comes in and asks for more staff, it becomes a really subjective kind of storytelling, about anecdotes about what their day is like, and it's totally foreign to what I'm used to, which is having a case built based on numbers, and so that's why I think starting to really look at what's the existing program and keeping track of the numbers, and what kind of programs did you decide not to do because there wasn't enough staff to do it, and all that stuff is things that you could put on paper and present rather than sit in a room and sort of tell stories about why another person would be useful.
Anne?
I think it's an excellent idea for two reasons. One is that the piece of coordinating with the schools has been missing, and that needs to be done. And the second is thinking concretely about how a person would be used, how a staff member would be used is a superb way to think. And I think since we are charged with developing a 5-year plan, we don't need to wait 5 years, but we're going to be thinking about how we envision the whole recreation program in Orleans. We've already thought outside the box, so to speak, and we need to think also inside the box, that being the schools, not just the trails and the waterways and the programs, but the schools, and keeping a list of things that we haven't done. For instance, all the other towns have very vigorous indoor pickleball and use the schools. And they would definitely be used. So keeping that list and populating our argument with numbers is a good challenge for us to do.
Morgan?
I read recently somewhere that the two people that ran the NASA Adult Ed retired, mostly due to COVID. But there might be an opportunity there for REC and maybe NASA to partner as well. I don't know where that money went, but it's probably still there. It might be an opportunity to combine, some positions, things like that. Maybe having another conversation with Tom. I don't know. That includes adults as well, as well as kids in schools. All that programming happened inside the middle school and OES.
Well, just so you'll know, on the recreation end of things, obviously the middle school did not run fall athletics. They haven't made a decision yet about winter because they're going to wait for the basketball guidelines to come out tomorrow. So we did pick up where they left off and ran a soccer program for kids and a cross-country program and tennis, but we've always run tennis. But we also picked up the adult because the NASA adult exercise class that ran in the mornings didn't run because nobody's getting into the building. So recreation picked that up as well. So we have 20, the stats I gave earlier about 28 people in a fitness class is basically picking up that class.
And that was that was a paid coordinator. So somewhere that, and you picked
Correct.
that up.
So, right. So
in my mind,
somewhere along the line, that
there's
money
somewhere
is
for that.
somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I think this makes a lot of sense. I think, you know, we had our earlier motion about keeping close eye on the numbers. And so we can continue to talk about this and be in a position going forward to make the case for that second staff person. Okay, CPC application updates. So you should have all received all the application drafts. There's one more from Carol on trails that she can fill us in on in a minute. So I'd like to just go through them. Hopefully, you know, now I feel kind of bad about the agenda being so long, but hopefully this portion is not as daunting as it might appear, because we're in such a good place with all of these applications and there's been so much work before tonight. So if we can go down the list and people can give an update of where the applications stand, and then we can talk about a little bit about bringing them together, you know, what they all need to have, and then we'll be able to get ready to submit them. So Joan, I'm going to turn to you first for bike path, storybook trail, and picnic tables. And then if you could also talk to us about the Bikes and Pathway Committee proposal that they're looking for an endorsement on.
Okay, so mine might go fast. The bike racks actually are, I worked with the OCT and we met with the Conservation Commission. We have alignment from everyone for the bike racks, and Alex at the OCT did a great job getting pricing right away. So the only thing about the bike racks that's not in here that is a little confusing, and Meth, we can use your help on this, is we did get an outside quote to install the bike racks at about $400 or $300 each. And Carol had talked to Tom Daly about the cost for installing, and he said about $800 each. So the outside quote was actually less than the town quote. And Tom had said, if we're going to go outside, it might be double his quote. So we're a little confused of what to put in there for the installation cost. I'm thinking putting in the 800 from the town.
I think what I would say is put in the 800, and maybe end up using the 300.
Right.
You could always turn money back.
Great. Okay. So that's what I'll do.
And Joan, Tom did say he gave a quote of $250 to $850, and he said without knowing the site or which kind of bike racks going in each place, use an average of 8. So he already put a bit of a cushion in there to be on the high side.
Right. And so the guy that we talked to, Jeff Norshow, he gave us an average of 400. So on the same parameters. So I'll just put in 800 though. So that'll bring up the bike path cost a bit. It's at 10 now. So probably coming up to like 15 instead. And I'm not going to read through everything. There's pictures and everything in there. We are hoping to approach AmeriCorps about installing the bike racks as part of what they can do. Is there any questions on bike racks?
I like the fact that it's a local guy that you've gotten quotes from.
Okay, the next one on the list is, let's put the real quotes, that's not mine, is picnic tables. That's very easy. I'm very excited with OCT to put 2 picnic tables in one of their properties, and one of the picnic tables being handicap accessible. And they're willing to give it a try. We'll monitor how much garbage is left, if people are using them, if people are just hanging out at them, or if there's any graffiti, because I do think this is the first step of getting some usable picnic tables there. Hi, Steve. And so you're still here. So these are really, once again, Alex did all the work. I just wrote up the application. He got the quote, he found the picnic tables, and OCT is going to install these. You want to jump in, Steve?
No,
You're on
I
mute.
don't have anything to add. I'm happy to answer any questions that come up along here as you're talking about OCT properties. But
Okay.
Is the number still 3323?
Yeah, that's accurate. Meth, these are all we got from an online source, Bilson Outdoors. Alex and I looked at them. I don't know if the town would have a different rate, but this was from, we looked at a bunch of websites and we picked this one.
Okay.
Okay. The third one, as I'm looking at these in order, is the Storybook Trails, which what I'd really love, where'd Morgan go? I'm on 3 of these, and if Morgan, if you wanted to lead this one, I can hand it over to you and put your name on it if you think you have time. I know this was your idea and it's fabulous, but I'm more than willing to hand over the rest of this if you're willing.
Sure. Yeah. I'm
Great.
school has started. We're on our way. I can do that.
Okay, great. So this has really been a wonderful collaboration between the OCT and the library. And also we now have involved Seawolf Books, who's the bookstore in town. That's run by Kaz and Jonathan. So it's really a great collaboration between 4 groups. And we went on a walk and we picked out the location of where this is going to be, which is Rubens and Ice House off of Tonsit, and there's parking there. It's a half-mile trail. We have looked at a lot of ways that these can be built, and Steve has just gotten an estimate from Jeff Norjo again to install these, and they're just a little bit higher than the quote I have in there. I'm probably going to add another $1,000 to the cost just in case. The Friends of the Library is going to donate $150 a year for the books. And then we're going to have the books for sale at the local bookstore. So all in all, it's just, to me, something that has really come together, bringing so many of us, all so many groups together. So this cost is going to go up by like $1,000, Mel.
Okay, hold on.
So we need a little.
What was it in that? Just add
It's at
$1,000
6,
to
it's
it?
going to go up to 7. Yeah.
Okay.
Just so we have a little leeway, Steve. And once again, we are going to talk to the Boy Scouts, and Foster from the library thinks it could be a fabulous Boy Scout project that they can install them. And so we'll either go down that route or ask some other local folks. If not, we can hire Jeff to install them. And I will, good,
just to
Steve.
be clear on that so everyone understands, Joan has included the installation cost, and hopefully between OCT and you guys will be able to find someone who will install them for free, some volunteer group.
Yeah, I think so. I live with someone, he might do it. And then the last one I just want to talk about is the bike application. So we had hoped that we could actually put in an application to get a bike path done based on what came back from Complete Streets. But the information that came back didn't have an engineering study, so we can't go forward until an engineering study is done. We are going to apply for a CPC grant for one bike path, and that is over by the Baker Pond Road. And it's linking the bike path to that area so that people could actually cross the street by the light. Tom Daly already had gotten a quote for getting the engineering study done, which is $25,000. And once the engineering study comes back, we can then decide if the following year it'll be applied for CPC funds or for Complete Streets. That's all unknown based on timing. So we're really supportive of this. This is an area of town that has been overlooked for giving access to recreation ideas. And so this seemed like the one that would really do us the most justice in terms of from the Bike and Rec Committee. And I think that's all I've worked on.
Okay, thank you. So you should all have a copy of the project application, Bikes and Pathways.
Yep.
Overland Way Shared Use Path. I'd like to make a motion for the Recreation Advisory Committee to endorse this project and support its application to CPC. Do I have a second?
Second.
Joan, any discussion? And
Can you be specific? We're endorsing the bike racks.
No,
No,
just the overland pass one that's coming from the bike committee.
so this is the one over by Baker's Pond Road.
to endorse the overland
Right,
pass from the bike committee.
right,
Support them.
right.
Yes, they'll apply. This doesn't fall
Right.
under rec applications.
Got it. Thank you. Did you get a second? I'll second it.
I got a second.
Okay.
Any discussion? Or any more discussion? Okay, we'll go to a vote. Joan,
Aye.
Tracy Murphy, aye. Anne,
Aye.
Kyle,
Aye.
Evan,
Aye.
Brandon,
Aye.
so that passes. Joan, can I write a letter for them tomorrow too?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Kayak racks and Anne.
Okay. So I've been inspired by Joan's extraordinary work, hard work. So the kayak rack proposal has evolved because we've talked to a lot of committees, and the people we've talked to have helped us fine tune us, that's the royal we, me. So the title has been revised, and it's the Kayak Rack and Waterways Education Program. All right, so the other principle of the application is that it will be rolled out slowly so that there can be feedback, modification, improvement, and that the first year we would start with probably 3 racks. I haven't been specific about those sites because things keep changing a little bit. I think one would be important because Steve and I spoke early on about the OCT Mill Pond, and it would, all the benefits of having some organization and stewardship of the that particular site would be a good example of what to start with. So I do have a question. Should I be specific in this application or just say 3 to begin with, and in the next year, the other 7? Do I need to cite them specifically?
Are you asking me?
I guess I am, Matt.
No, I don't think you need to give specific commitments to sites. I think you could maybe make a list of sites that are under consideration, and just say that you intend to install them on 3 of them,
Okay.
and see you next year.
Okay, so one of the important pieces of feedback is from the Shellfish and Waterways Committee, who has, as Meph knows, for years had a adverse response to the idea of any racks in areas where the fishing industry tries to access the waters. So one of the principles of this program is that the decision about siting will happen as a citizens committee paired with the important, I hate to use it, stakeholders, shared waterway people, work out the best sites. They were on the verge of asking that no deep water waterway access be have a kayak rack anywhere near there. but I think there's an opportunity to talk further, because the idea, and I don't want to get you too much in the weeds, but for instance, Cove Road is one of the deep water access, and it's important for boaters to be able to use that ramp. What is very unpleasant for boaters trying to use that ramp is to hang out and wait for kayakers who are giggling and tipping over and having trouble launching or getting out of their kayak. And the concept of a program would include, perhaps in consultation with Nate Sears and the town, a signage that says kayakers, boat ramps for trailers only, kayakers, here's your launch area. And there is a nice launch area. So anyway, the point being that this application will not have specifics other than the specific that the input of people who care will guide the positioning of the racks after the fact. And there will also be a volunteer cadre of people who monitor and steward the program.
Questions for Anne? Okay, thank you, Anne. I think it looks really great.
I do have a question, actually. Tom did quote I think it was Tom, Joan, who quoted something about kayak rack installation costs, which was a large number, or was that Carol who came across that number?
Yeah. He didn't know what it would look like, and I told him it would hold 8 as far as I knew and be wooden. So he assumed it would be assembly plus installation for that cost. And he assumed it would he used the bike racks as a model, as he assumed, because his guys had already installed a couple bike racks and had some real experience with a few already.
Okay. So whatever that number is, it's in my email. I'll use that number because it's way over what Dick Hilmer and I talked about at length, where he said, and Brewster, Ryan Birch, and a team of volunteers, which included AmeriCorps, whipped them together one afternoon. So, but I'll use the larger number and go from there. Good, thank you.
So just can I get the number?
Oh.
I'm just trying to keep track of these.
Okay, so the number I used for the whole program was 10,000.
Yep.
Included, do you want to know what it included?
No, I just want to make, that was the number I had, so that's not changing.
I would put it to 15 because it would include a higher number that Tom Daly came up with.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Carol?
Yes, I'm sorry mine was late. I missed the 2 o'clock deadline on Tuesday, but it's ready.
My fault too.
It's ready to share with others. It's been through a review process with Tracy and Joan. It's very similar in concept to the kayak approach that Anne just described. We touched base with conservation 3 times and had Mike Brink work separately with us representing them. I had a lot of help from Steve and Alex, and then I spent some good phone time with the Brewster Conservation Trust executive director as well. Because we have an approval from conservation in concept only, the proposal is for, the only specific in it is for directional signage in all five of the biggest conservation areas. And let's see, that number is $525, assuming that that it's going to be AmeriCorps and volunteer labor. I didn't even get anything from Tom on that. And those 5 areas I can list for you if you want, but you probably know what they are. Kent's Point, Baker's Pond, Kenrick Woods, Pawa, and Peck. And then the second part of the proposal is for interpretive signage, and it has 2 parts. One is 1 sign per trail. So it would be not the sign, not like the kiosks that OCT just put up at the, right at the trailhead, which are just beautiful. And conservation is planning to do something similar based on resubmitting their last year CPC application. The one I'm talking about would be 1 interpretive sign within that welcome to this area and here are the rules sign. It would have a map and it would feature some aspects of the site or protecting a portion of the site or history of the site or something like that. And those themes are not picked yet. So I have this set up as the proposal is for 3 single interpretive signs that are near the trailhead, but within the area. And then 2 entire interpretive trails that are a series of 5 or 6 signs. I think I went with 6. And they unfold and tell a story. And this, and the proposal says we would create a task force that we would roll out slowly, exactly like Ann just described. And the task force would work on the first single sign, just the first one for the first 6 to 9 months. And we would learn so much from our talking with all the various stakeholders of the various committees who would have to sign off. And it's quite an experience to whittle down lots of information to something short and punchy and visually really attractive. So the bottom line for, and again, it would take place on the same 5 large areas, but we don't have the information to be specific which ones. So the proposal is for 1 single followed by 2 more single and 2 trails. So 3 singles and 2 trails total over 2 years. And the total for that, including graphic design, et cetera, material shipping, is $48,750 if installed by AmeriCorps, which is free, or $66,750 if installed by DPW using Tom's numbers. And if I can send this to you, I was just waiting for approval from Tracy before I send it any other place.
So I'm just going to make note that that's 70,000. Is that what you have to put a number in that application, right?
Yeah, I've got the number. It's 66,750.
Okay.
It's built up with a lot of detail. It's just not specific as to location, but it's got excellent estimates from both a local graphic design and a firm that OCT and BCT have used recently. It's got photos. It's got the details pretty clear. Thanks to Steve and Alex again.
Questions for Carol? Okay, basketball court is next. Ron Collins was really instrumental, as was Tom Daly in this. And we did end up choosing a site on the middle school field at the far end, of the parking lot. So it's sort of the right corner of that corner of the field. We have a proposal to do design and engineering services from a firm in Boston for $38,000. Tom Conrad has been really supportive, and the school committee voted unanimously to endorse it. They were really excited. They said that it was something that Maxine Minkoff had very much wanted to see happen when she was principal. There was a lot of support there. There were an excitement about what else could happen on that field. And the track in particular came up, I think, at 2 or 3 different points during our conversation with the school committee. The region will handle maintenance. So that's taken care of. And so the hope would be that we get the engineering services next August and September, and then come back to CPC a year from now with a construction plan to look for funding. I've reached out to the rec committees in Brewster and in Eastham to see if there's interest in doing this together. And they are both going to discuss it at their December meetings, and then we'll go from there. I'll continue to reach out in the Nauset area for other possible partners, but it's been I've had nothing but positive feedback so far. So really, I think the challenge was just finding the site. And once we had that, people were really eager to support the idea.
Awesome, good job. It's been like the challenge for the basketball court for forever. So
I know,
congrats. That's awesome.
It's a funny little corner right in the back of that field where it just so happens to fit. It'll take out a couple of parking spaces. But yeah, it was just, I think they turned the map enough times and looked at it from every possible angle. And then there were no concerns about this site. And as you know, every other possible site, there was a list of concerns. So yeah, so this is exciting.
Can you just describe exactly where that is? I can't.
Yes, I'm sorry. And I can send this. This is my version of screen sharing. So
it's at the same level as the parking lot. It's not down that slope toward the ball field.
Right. It's at the same level.
Great.
And it would be right by the doors to the middle school gym. So, it's a great location. I did hear last month, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but I heard from the Serena Killowy, who runs the after school program at the elementary school, reached out to support the basketball court near the middle school because the middle school kids tend to cross over through the elementary school fields and playground to use that one. And really need and deserve their own place. So again, I think it's a really good solution. And then the same company that did this, or that will hopefully do this proposal, is taking a look at the track that Evan can update us on in a minute. So yeah, we're excited to get.
Awesome. You're going to make so many people happy. Good job.
Yeah, Sharon has been great on this too. And last week when the time switched and it got dark early, but it was still like 58 degrees. She was saying this is, in a few years, kids can be out playing. It'll be a lighted basketball court even when that time switch happens. And so I think it'll be really nice. Matt?
Just a point too, there was, I think, some enthusiasm at the select board for letting the rec program use that space by the town hall where the police station, where the temporary police, things were put a few years ago. It's a nice flat area with parking and power, and but this is great. I didn't think you were going to find a place like that, so that's good.
Yeah.
So what is the ask this year?
The ask is $38,000.
Which is going to be just for engineering and stuff?
Yes, and they'll take us through the bidding process.
Okay.
Yes, no, not having any personal experience with designing basketball courts, I'm trusting that it's a reasonable proposal. Tom and Ron again have been really helpful, and
it's a little shocking, but
yeah,
that's probably the reality.
Well, yeah, yes, we want it done right. I think when I asked Tom Conrad about maintenance, he said if you build it right, there's not going to be a lot of maintenance. So let's just do a good job putting it in. So hopefully we're on that road. Okay, Evan?
Hey, good evening, everybody. So an update on the track. Don't let me bury the lead here. I don't have a final dollar figure, not even close to it yet. That's why you don't have a written proposal in front of you right now. And I'm also trying to think as big as I possibly can with this project, and certainly open to your suggestions. But I think I mentioned last month that I went into this at first saying, okay, there's a track and it can be better. Let's rubberize it. And the ideas have definitely grown from there. So right now, what I've done is I spoke with Christoph Eldridge from Cape Cod Tennis and Track, which is the company who's hired to maintain the tennis courts out at the high school. Their contact information was given to me by Superintendent Conrad's office. So I spoke with Christoph Eldridge on the 11th of November, and this is far from an official estimate because he was just on Google Earth kind of doing some measurements of the track. He said, yeah, people have been talking about trying to improve this track for many, many years. It's just never come to fruition. We'd be happy to work with you guys if you're able to get the funds to do it. But just so you know, the track is probably about 4 feet lower at one end than it is at the other end. So if you want to try to get into ripping up the whole surface and making it perfectly level, which is what it would need to be a certified track, if you're going to have track meets out there for the schools, it's going to be much more expensive. As it is, he was saying it'll be well over $200,000 for their company to come out and rubberize the track surface on its existing footprint. Again, I don't have anything in writing. So at that point I said, thanks. He was very pleasant to talk to. He gave me a lot of information, way more information than I ever knew about outdoor running tracks. I then have subsequently been in back and forth email correspondence with Tom Daly, asking him what they can do in terms of putting together some cost estimates. He asked, did we want to just rubberize the surface? And I said, well, really what I'd like to do is do an artificial playing turf for the entire infield, large enough for a regulation size soccer field where you could also play soccer, field hockey, lacrosse, any sport you could imagine on the infield multi-purpose playing surface, with a rubberized 1/4-mile track around the outside. I figure I want to go as big as possible and see how expensive it would be to really make that playing surface a surface that could last for a very long time for both the community and the school kids. So that's where we are. I received an email from him that I'm looking at now during this meeting saying that this is Tom Daly I'm referring to. He says, I'm told I will have the cost estimate shortly. So pending your questions, that's where I am with this project.
Evan, I have a question. So for CPC, you can't use it for artificial turf.
Okay.
It's in one of their rules of what you're not allowed to use it for. So I guess I'm wondering whether or not you would also be told the same thing a lot of us are told now, is that you probably would need an engineering study first before you can apply to get anything done. So will Tom be able to give you an engineering study cost?
Tom Daly you're asking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Okay. Is he said, I'm trying to get back into the email trail here, but he says, yeah, we can design it, we can build it, we can do a lot of this project for you. It just depends on how involved Superintendent Conrad and the school board is willing to allow us to be involved. So there are a lot more discussions that need to happen. So I just said, hey, whatever you can do in terms of helping me with a ballpark cost, that'd be helpful for me to start getting application paperwork pulled together.
And I think,
yes, and I don't know if I asked my question right. I don't know. Do you think we have enough information to even put an application together? Not understanding what the components are.
I suspect not at this time. Tracy and I have emailed back and forth, and because of all the hard work the rest of you have done and put the projects you have that are ready to be pushed across the goal line here, there's a lot more work to be done on this one.
I think part of our thinking too was the proposal about the basketball court does include looking at any modifications they have to make to the track. So making sure that we're having, even though the two projects won't be happening at the same time, making sure that there's a conversation, that we're all on the same page in working with the same core group of people, so that almost like passing the baton, we'll get the basketball court going, and then be in a position to make some changes at the track. Matt?
I was just going to mention that at that dollar level, it would be good to see if you can, enlist Eastham and Brewster CPCs to participate in that. It would really help a lot.
Right.
And Wellfleet, even although they're a little further away.
And yeah, similarly, as we talk to those towns about the basketball court, if we have something on paper about the track, even if it's early, even if it's in early stages, I think the sooner we can start that conversation, the better. Morgan?
Just because I live with somebody who's on the school committee, I know that there's discussion about having, like when you get into that dollar amount for the track, you want to start thinking about all that space, I think, in a way, and how all those fields are utilized best, instead of just sort of, I love that the basketball court's going in, but I think we might need a bigger plan, a more long range plan, instead of all these smaller projects, even though $100,000 is a lot of money. But once you start getting into that kind of money, I think we need to think a little bit more big picture about what that space looks like in the long run. I don't know. That's just a thought.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And certainly happy for this to grow to be a project that looks at that entire athletic field. How many different playing surfaces can we fit in that area? Then we can look at hosting tournaments down the road and what sort of money that potentially brings in. Again, I have way more questions than I have answers right now, but I agree we need to look at it in full. I think we'll talk about Sandwich and the Oakcrest Park later in the agenda, but just I don't know how the CPA funding from town to town matches up, but I about fell out my chair when I read the email that said they required $2 million of CPA funding to do that skate park and pickleball courts in Sandwich. So there's big money out there. Maybe it's just in Sandwich. If you can educate me on how this works.
Okay, great. Thank you, Evan. Kyle, pickleball.
Yeah, not much has changed on the pickleball. I think I haven't had any contact with Ron since our last meeting. I'm thinking with the issues on the ADA compliance and the stairs, that we might want to just get the pickleball court application in and kind of scrap the stair component. It might still be in the application, but we can kind of excise that. The numbers I don't think are going to change. Ron gave me the numbers before I wrote the application, and it was basically the same as last year's. So really just kind of leave it as is. And I think the stairs was a good idea, but if it's going to overcomplicate the project, let's just get the pickleball courts in, since we know they're going to be used.
Okay, great. Questions for Kyle? Matt?
So 40,000 is the number that you're using for the pickleball. Okay.
Yes.
And Tracy, I'm going to have to leave you at this
Okay.
point. I think you've gone through all the applications, right?
Yes. Yes. We have one more to discuss, but I can get in touch with you if I need to.
Okay. Okay. Good meeting. This is very interesting.
Thank you.
See you all later.
Thanks, Matt.
Your help as always. Okay. And Kyle, did you want to talk too about?
Well, I mean, so it's on the agenda, CROS study application, just thinking on thoughts of, furthering Rec's agenda, kind of just haberdashed an application together. I think where I stand right now and thoughts on it is that it might be something we would want to put off simply because we've never really discussed our CROS plan or how we're going to look at it or what do we need to do or any of that sort of stuff. And I think it would be kind of like almost a half-baked application at this point. So I'm more than comfortable tabling it and coming back, some other point down the future.
Okay.
I think we got a lot of great applications. I'm really excited about all this stuff. It's great.
It is. It is exciting. I think maybe what would be still helpful, because I think it was a really good idea. Could you just tell everyone what the concept was behind that application that we're now tabling? Because I think as
Sure.
we move into the next agenda items, that it would be good to have a sense of a possible direction to go with ideas that come out of this discussion.
So, I mean, we've looked at the CROS plan in the past. The rec component of that plan, in my opinion, is lacking. And the thought behind the process would be to kind of update our portion of that plan through, using outside consultants or whatever we might find to be helpful in terms of identifying things that we wanted to pursue as a committee, or we wanted the town to incorporate into their CROS plan. Bigger capital project type ideas, identifying spaces for things like, basketball courts or whatever, or even getting all the way up to the community center at some point. But kind of also taking the informal surveying we've done and take it to the next level to really support a lot of the ideas that we're coming up with. Because I think we have a lot of good ideas. It's just, selling them to the people that aren't on the committee or heavily invested in rec. But the idea was to really kind of just turn what I see as a mostly passive recreation plan for the town, which is fine, but trying to create a little bit more of an active rec space or an active rec plan moving forward too.
Okay, thank you. So let's move to the next agenda item, but I think, whether we're talking about the track and looking at those fields as a whole, and or going to 139 Main Street, and even thinking about our 5-year plan, that I think the idea of bringing in professionals who can formalize what happens at our ideas and our surveys would be really helpful, because there are so many possible directions that we could go in. Carol.
Just before you leave the topic of the submission of these plans that we've just gone over, I think there's still an inconsistency in them. They say a combination of Orleans outdoors and Orleans outside, and I think we need to pick one and be consistent.
Okay. Thank you. I agree. Does anyone have a strong feeling about outdoors versus outside?
I'd like to ask Carol what she thinks.
I like outdoors better, but and one of the reasons is that LL Bean's current branding is all about outsider, being outside, so I feel like it's not as fresh, and the other one feels more like it's ours, that you came up with it, or I don't know whether that's a good reason or not. But.
That's a good enough reason for me. Okay, so we'll settle on outdoors unless there's strong feeling for outside.
And Tracy, I'll fix my applications. I'll update the costs and send them back to you. And
Okay,
I'm gonna swap Morgan's name in for mine also, so that'll all be fixed.
Okay. Joan, is there anything else at the top of the applications that you think we should
maybe we just put recreation and spell it out. It's whatever you want, Tracy, but yeah, we should just be consistent at the top. If you decide what it should be, Tracy, we could follow your lead.
Oh,
how's that?
Good luck with that. Let's see. So I think Orleans Outdoors for the project title, then the specific project. Applicant will do Orleans Recreation Advisory Committee.
Mm-hmm.
Then the committee member's name for contact. And then we all have the Orleans Outdoors write-up.
Okay.
So I think that should do it. And if people can send your finished applications to me, it's all due on Monday through email and paper copies. So I'm I can email everything Monday and then drop everything off at town hall. And if there are any questions or anything comes up, you know where to find me. But I think, and thank you, everyone. This was a lot of work, and at least for me, it was a really great learning experience. And so these are exciting, but it's also great to think about the next steps from here. You know, what we've gained from going through the process, and how we put that new knowledge to use, I think is going to be exciting to see. Any questions? Okay. And keeping an eye on the clock, because I know people start to fade. 139 Main Street is the property that Meph had mentioned earlier by the Orleans Historical Society. I reached out to Meph to talk about next steps. He's encouraging us to work with the planning board. So I think that's something that in the coming months that we'll want to, you know, there's so many things that we need to have in the back of our minds in the coming months. But I think developing a relationship with the planning board should be among those things. I also talked to George Meservey, who said that once you subtract the area belonging to the Historical Society, there's about 1.85 acres on that property. He did note that it's not regular in shape or level, and that the existing building is not likely to go away. So space available, but we would, you know, not a clean flat surface to start with. He also noted that the parking lot currently serves as overflow for town hall, and that boat trailers park there during bass season. And that the town will be looking for locations to park Nauset Beach visitors, knowing the beach parking lot will be phased out based on erosion. So it's a complicated property. But as we've seen, just because properties are complicated doesn't mean we can't eke out some space for recreation. He suggested that our next best steps would be to think about potential uses, determine how much space we need, and to be keeping in consideration parking, lights, and neighbors. And that once we have some sort of general ideas, then he could see us about putting us on the planning board agenda to talk about both this and then sort of long-term goals. So that's the update on that. And then
just quickly interject, Tracy. So just along the same lines of fostering relationship with planning board, they've got that $15,000 they have for the Governor Prince look at. That's something that we should also keep in mind with talking to the planning board. It's been suggested that if we want to line up, we should start lining up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. So I'll open it to conversation. I also want to give Anne the opportunity to talk about the potential for collaboration with the Orleans Historical Society on that property. I think was at least part of what you were thinking. So do you want to fill us in on that?
Sure. While walking, I crossed paths with a neighbor who's on the board, and they have the 36-500 Coast Guard boat. You all know what that is. And he was talking about their concept that's very early of creating a structure, an enclosed structure, which would, the boat in the center of it, with an educational path around to inside to learn about the boat. I can envision they're showing the rescue of the Pendleton on a video and all sorts of things that they might do. And putting it on some of that property. So he brought that up and I said, interesting. We've been thinking about that property. We agreed that in the future, sometime this winter, it may be worth talking about how we would envision a recreation and historical combination with that property. So that was that. And so I think they're open to thinking about how that might be coordinated. The other thing I just wanted to mention that the select board the other night was talking about things they might sell to produce revenue in town. And that little building sitting there, I think, was one of the things they thought they might sell. It just flitted by as an idea. But I think when George spoke to us, he hinted heavily that we should think about this property before it disappears for other uses.
Okay, and then in sort of thinking about that property and projects going forward, Evan had sent the information about Oak Crest Park. Which was that's a huge and very expensive project, but something to, something that we can look at for the process, I think too, I thought the process notes were interesting about making sure that there were different constituencies represented in the plan, sort of buy-in from kids and from older people in the community. I think they could be, good people to go to for advice and experience going forward. Evan, did you want to talk a little about that project?
Yeah, just really quickly, since it's getting late. I drive past this park every day on my way home from work and was just blown away and continue to be blown away by how many people are on this skate park and on these pickleball courts at the same time. This place is mobbed, even in times of COVID. I'm no medical professional, so I'll save my personal commentary on that. But essentially, they did a phenomenal job with this project. It is eye-watering the way these facilities look. And so I just threw an email their way asking them, how the heck did you make this happen? Because it looks amazing. And I thought the feedback was great about building a skate park that typically attracts a younger generation, putting it right next door to pickleball courts that typically attracts an older generation. And they were really able to drum that up about how they were going to hit multiple segments of the population. So, obviously I'm biased towards the track project, but I think the ball fields and the track and the basketball court can be a great place for elderly community to be out for their early morning walk in the mornings and kids to be playing ball on the courts. And so we can kind of tie into that angle like they did with this project. The price tag of $2.1 million, definitely staggering. Seems like there's money out there to be had as long as we put in the time and the energy and the homework to build a strong case for why we should receive that type of money for these sorts of projects. So I don't think we should be deterred by, wow, sticker shock, that's really expensive. I'm a big believer in you get what you pay for. Nice things cost big money. It just kind of is what it is. Obviously, it's nice to be as thrifty as possible, but you want something that's going to last. It probably costs some money up front. And then, just getting support from the local boards, and then finally asking them about their staff. Having 3 full-time staff members and 2 part-time year-round staff in the Sandwich Recreation Department. Another thing that had me falling out of my chair. I haven't done any comparisons about total numbers of residents that live in Sandwich versus residents that live in Orleans. Running those numbers would be important, but I mean, come on, 1 full-time employee in our rec department, not good enough. And that's all I have on that.
I looked up the census information. So Sandwich has a year-round population of about 21,000, and we're around 6. So I think I have that right, if that sounds right. Yeah. So they are quite a bit bigger, but we also might not need something quite as, something on a smaller scale would still be a pretty wonderful contribution to the community. So thank you for sending that. And I think, I know the person who you emailed with is an Orleans resident, who might be, who I think would be happy to talk further to us. So, a lot of this I think is connecting the dots and looking for partners and people with different skill sets and interests. So if we can continue to do that, it can only help us. All right. So what I would like to do with the 139 and with the Sandwich idea and the Historical Society is come back to it at the next meeting. And I'd ask people to give some thought as to potential uses for that 139 property. You have the map, you can do a drive by or walk through someday and sort of, George Meservey has also been really helpful with drawing, at least with the basketball court, giving me that red triangle in different places or rectangle in different places when I've asked for it. So I think once we have some ideas, we can start playing around with that map and seeing what might be able to fit. All right, feasibility study at town meeting. I thought it was great to hear the support that it got, and the people who spoke, in addition to Kyle and Sharon, I thought hearing from other people in the community gave me some nice insights into what this could mean and ways to move the conversation forward. Hearing people who had perspectives or ideas that I hadn't thought of yet. And I think it's great that it got a majority, that it got majority support. So I'm wondering about next steps. And I didn't know, Kyle, if you have a plan B or C.
Well, it's also interesting to note that I was told that it was the highest vote getter, period. So whether it was, not just the total number of votes that were cast for or against, it was the most participated, which was interesting to me. I think that moving forward with this idea, it's probably a much longer conversation than the few remaining minutes we have here, but it's kind of talking about all these things that we're doing. I mean, I think what we're doing with these CPC applications is essentially doing this Sandwich Park kind of piecemealed, right? If you haven't seen it, check out the skate park. We just finished a half pipe over there. It's an awesome little, new addition, but so we're doing a great job, and it's just trying to, I think, identify, going back to that CROS CPC application of what do we really need to help support our position, and having more in-depth conversations about that. And another thought that I had, which it sounds like MEF is also having the same idea, but is doing a similar grab of the marijuana tax dollars that we did with the Airbnb dollars for the sewer, and coming up with some sort of plan. I've already actually just kind of drafted and kind of floated it to a buddy of mine to say, hey, check this out. What do you think? But saying, can we take some percentage of that cut of the town tax and direct it straight towards recreational funding or whatever other project we were looking at. So it's something that I think we need to have a bigger conversation about, but it's also something we also need to, I think, come at it with more of a support for it and reasons to advocate for it, because that was the pushback, right? It's a want versus a need, and really kind of trying to lay out the groundwork that it's more of a need versus want.
Hey, Kyle, on that idea, I know that Andrea Reed has already put forward that she would like to see any money that comes forward to go to pre-K and to recreation. So there are a lot of supporters. And in terms of the Governor Prince property, because I'm on the library board and also interested in that property, but they are going to have a lot of people involved in that because it is a huge piece of land, and how can we all come together? And I think it's great if the select board is also behind that. So I would love to not have to volunteer you, but make sure that one of us is on that team looking at that property, because that is the biggest opportunity, I think, space-wise, that everyone's looking at.
Carol?
Yeah, just quickly, I agree with you in how we build support. But I also learned from some of my neighbors who voted no on that. And when I asked them why, I would build into our support addressing what the objections are and turning them around. And the objection was the person I'm thinking of, had sort of a 40-year-old out-of-date view of what a community center is. So his view was, why would you want one of those? And when I said, oh, that's not what I envision at all. I envision this and this and this. So there is a definition that we've talked about before is part of the education process.
Thank you. Yeah, I think another, some of the cons were not now, that we should get through this. And so at the next town meeting or the next time it comes up, we have, we didn't do it then. Now is the time, I think. And I think continuing the conversation is important. But I just thought it was great to get it out there and just start to talk about what it might look like and start to
got a good read of the town, I think, just by taking the vote and hearing the feedback. And COVID's an unfortunate part of all of this, but it's also sewer project, fire station, police station that we just put in, the high school project that's going to be coming up. It's a lot of tax dollars are going to be spent, and people's property taxes are going to be hurting. But I think there's a way to figure out how to move forward with the project. It's just continuing to talk to those people that are interested in it. So
okay, good. So lots to come back to next time. Next meeting date, I forgot to write down, but it's the third Thursday in December. If someone gets to it before I do, just shout. So the 17th at 6.
I won't be there. I might be in the hospital, baby.
Do you, is it the 17th?
16th the due date, but
oh, gosh.
please meet without me if you have to.
No, we'll go right ahead.
Let everybody know ahead of time.
Keep us updated with pictures, please.
Of course.
Oh, best wishes. Woo.
Nice.
It's really exciting, and that's an exciting time of year.
Yeah, that's great.
Good. Well, best wishes to you with all of that and the excitement leading up to it. I will then plan to see everyone else on the 17th. Send any agenda items my way, and I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second, all in favor? Okay. Thank you. That was a long.
Thank you, Tracy.
But it was a productive one. So
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody.